Reclaiming Timeless Ways, Mike Traster, Simon Fuller, you're along with this as well for episode 104. And our topic is,
are you fit to be a nurse, doc, minister, cop, counselor, or whatever?
and why'd you pick those professions out the gate?
Well, I've had some real profound.
Well, they're people professions is what I'm kind of my takeaway.
Okay.
I'm thinking back to Sesame Street, right? What do these all have in common back in the day? And really all of them they're protectors of people, or that is the goal of the profession, right? A minister, a cop, a doc, a nurse, they're supposed to protect people, serve people, right?
That's okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the goal, and that's why I think you're picking those out.
You read more into it than I. I didn't formalize the consistency between those. Yeah, that's it.
That is what we're supposed to do in those professions, and many do, but not all, Mike.
Definitely.
And I know over the course of our 100+ shows,
Right.
we've had different tidbits and conversations and examples, and you spent a lot of years in the medical field, so you've seen it firsthand. This isn't just blowing smoke up the old rear end.
No. So first I'm going to start with some good examples.
Okay.
My clinical instructor was a lady named Maria, and she was probably the most inspiring, engaging, committed, and generous, intelligent, and competent teacher that I've had.
Yeah.
She was extraordinary. And she would just take her time at the end of the shift and give me time after she was off the clock and go into as much detail as I wanted for as long as I wanted. And I would always apologize. You don't have to apologize. I'm here to teach you. So she made me better than I would have been. Now, was I perfect? Hell no. I was not. Was I weak in some areas? Absolutely weak in some areas. I was not a good nurse for Alzheimer's patients. It's just not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But she helped me be much better. She helped me evaluate things better. So I would say, in terms of her intelligence and her preparedness and her commitment, and her gentle, encouraging manner, she was amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There was a doc I knew. He's from North Dakota, and you might have heard me talk about him. They say he practiced with an angel on his shoulder. So people would come into his office terrified, paralyzed with fear, and they would leave with this beatific smile on their face. And he didn't make a speech. He was just present. But there was something transformational that moved from him and through him. So when I say he practiced with an angel on his shoulder, I mean it.
He did, yeah.
He did. He absolutely did. Minister. I'll tell you, there was a guy who used to teach on the radio outside of Spokane, if I remember, Pastor Ken Ortiz.
Yeah, you talked about him.
Yeah, he's a great teaching pastor. Fantastic. I used to love to listen to him. I haven't listened to him much in a few years. He's incredibly gifted. And I met him. I went to his church and didn't know it was him or his church. And I asked him, I said, do you do marital counseling? I was already divorced. He goes, no. And I said, how come? He goes, I'm no good at it. It's not my gift. I was like, I'm thinking, you lazy bum. And then I'm thinking, no, he's honest.
Yeah.
He knows where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Incredible. So he taught on the life of David. And so I think I went there like 6 or 8 weeks. It's a huge church. Very easy place to get lost in a sea of people. And I didn't like that.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of him, he was incredible. A cop, my next door neighbor growing up, Tom Clark, sadly passed. He lived to be 92. Um, Big burly guy. Said he pulled his gun once in 25 years as a cop in a very, very rough New York City neighborhood. And he threatened to pull it once or more times. The one time he pulled it, I think he had to shoot a bat. Very gentle, kind man who had the capacity to do great harm, but he loved people and people loved him,
Yeah.
you know. Counselor, I'm not sure if I can think of an individual right offhand. Um, I think I knew a lot of people who had some gifts, but it's a tough field. It really is. I think you have to look at somebody, you have to take them in their entirety, kind of like with the martial arts thing, where you look at the center of a person and you absorb everything.
Yeah.
When you're looking at their eyes, you're looking at things that are affirming each other and things that are contradicting each other. Are they smiling but looking like they're gonna like a piece of glass that's about to shatter? You know, you have to give them your full attention and your caring and your energy, and then you can't come necessarily up with solutions too quickly.
Right.
Sometimes people just need to grieve,
Yeah.
you know. And oh, have I made that mistake? I could think of one time in particular. Two. Um, Sometimes there are wonderful therapies that are absolutely incredible for one person and horrendous for
the other.
another. Right. Um, or therapy can be overused, you know. For example, emotive therapy, like Arthur Janov wrote a book called The Primal Scream, where you would get this rage or this fear out of somebody and have them express it like they're back in that place, so they become fully conscious of the degree of harm that they absorb. But if you have them continually do it, it's as though the trauma hasn't just happened once, because they're re-experiencing it on every level. So it's like they've been traumatized. If you have them do it 10 times, the first, second time, you're getting them conscious. But after that, the trauma is being multiplied. So you're having an opposite effect. So I think patience is a huge thing. You have to care. And caring is not theatrical.
Right.
It is not theatrical. So two people could care very differently.
Yeah.
You know. So one might be very passionate, another one might be very quiet and patient. Like I would think my instructor, Maria, she would have been quietly caring. She would have made people very safe. Just like that doc, the one with the angel on his shoulder, you know. Other people might be much more animated.
Right.
They might help certain kind of people more than others. If you're very animated and somebody's very timid, you might scare them, you know. So you have to have a match of some sort. The other end is the people that don't pay attention or pretend to.
Yeah. What's your motive? Really, it boils down to what's your motive for being where you are. When you said, I think you said it best when you said with that pastor that made the comment to you, no, that's not my gift. And you had this realization of he knows where he's supposed to be. Okay, so what is your motive for being where you're at? Is it financial?
Right.
Is it because of the freedoms? Is it because of the power?
Yeah.
Is it because of the prestige?
Mm-hmm.
Because if any of those are your primary motives, you're talking about all the good things that you should have,
Yeah.
but all those motives are in most cases, I guess I'm not going to say humanity doesn't, there's not some selfish drives, but if your predominant motives are any of those, you're in the wrong spot.
Right.
You're absolutely wrong. When you sum it up by saying you've got to care,
Right.
that is the biggest core value,
Huge.
especially in those positions.
Huge. Absolutely huge.
If you don't genuinely have some care, well,
I'm gonna say something, and I have a face or two in mind,
uh-oh, what's
but
coming
I'm
up?
not
Sorry.
gonna.
I'm going to apologize in advance, folks.
I'm not gonna name anybody.
Teasing you.
They may not be from here. They may be a number of people.
I can tell there's a story coming, Mike.
Well, there's a number of stories, but to be theatrically therapeutic is to be a practice builder. So then you're there to heal your practice,
Right.
your patient.
Right.
And you're there to build a mountain of cash. And you can be the most sincere, fake ass listener on the planet. Absolutely sincerely full of shit. And you can have a whole dictionary of slick bullshit down to perfection.
Oh, absolutely. You've talked about some of those big time pastors that you call Showtime.
Yeah.
That's kind of how you summarize it different times.
Right. Yeah.
Are you there for Showtime or are you there for real?
Right. I call them rockabilly. I think you've heard me use that term.
I don't know. I don't recall that one.
Okay. Well, the church I call Showtime, and the pastor, depending on how they would call that.
Oh, sure.
I got that term rockabilly.
Okay.
But so I can think of people that are, highly trained, masters, PhD level, absolutely disingenuous, and brilliant self-marketers, and they are building a little fortune for themselves. They're building a kingdom, of savings and investments and properties. And while they're doing this, they have this countenance, this theatrical presence of, oh, okay, what, really, what else is going on with that? It's not real. It's just not fucking real.
Yeah.
You're being drawn in, and they're already clicking. You're having a conversation with somebody, and they're already clicking you in at 80 or 100 or $200 an hour. And all you are is a building block for another CD, And that disingenuity is toxic as all hell. It's horrendous. And it could be a very nice person. But somewhere, everything links back. Every damn last thing links back to them being a practice builder. See it a lot of chiropractors. Say, hey, doc, how you doing? Yeah, I've got this. Call my secretary. We'll get you set up. And then they put you on a schedule, a forever schedule. Personally, I hate that. I don't think that's what a good I don't think that's what a good chiropractor should do. I think that they should give you the least amount of care that you need to get the most benefit. Teach you how to keep yourself stable, and then see you again if, you need to be seen again. But not to build a mountain of cash. So they actually have these experts that help people build practices, and they're called practice building experts. And they double and triple and quadruple book. So they've got these little cubbies, and they walk in and out of them. So their assistant will come in and have a very therapeutic tone and ask you questions. Be very polite, maybe run a massager up and down your neck for a few minutes. And then the doctor will come in and go, oh, we'll lay down here and quack, quack, quack. Oh, okay. Just relax and I'll be back in a few minutes. So they do that. And in 15 minutes, they've seen 8 people at 50 or 60 bucks a pop, and it's like all day long, right? They literally have a conveyor belt of money, and they have found a little gold mine. They're not there.
Yeah.
They're not there. And I think ultimately, well, we'll use another example, an author, right? Like the book Siddhartha, which is a book about the life of the Buddha. It's written by Hermann Hesse, who's a German or Austrian author, brilliant, brilliant author. It's a short book, 150 pages. It's a one-night read. The book is mind-blowing, right? I'll tell you what Hermann Hesse didn't have. He didn't have a multi-book contract. What he had was a heart and a head that were on fire. He wanted to do good. So he gave you this multi-dimensional journey where everything in your rational mind that said this is just a story was shut off, and he brought you there. And you experienced his life in all the dimensions of it. And it was so he had this vision, and he allowed this vision to become this garden that flowered. I would say it's maybe as fine a piece of literature as, not the only one, but one of the truly great pieces of writing. When you're counting your dollars, you can't count your dollars and be on that level of inspiration. Each is somewhat opposed. It's not that you're not supposed to make a living.
Correct.
Or be comfortable.
Right.
Or have a car instead of a jalopy that's tied together with coat hangers, right? But if everything is, well, we're 20 grand to the plus last week or last month, that makes it impossible for that. That's a gig. That's not a ministry.
Yeah. Again, what's your motivation?
Yeah.
What's your intention here?
Right. So, and I've had a confrontation fairly recently with somebody who was pulling some of that with me. I was just having a life conversation with them, and it was like, and it was all bullshit.
Yeah.
And I looked at them and I said, listen, you're analyzing.
Yeah.
You're in that role. You're playing a role. They were like, I don't think anybody had ever said that to them in their whole life. Yeah. Right? Because they had this believability thing going on. Great theater. Fantastic. Not a bad person, but somebody, I think, violating the spirit of their sacred ground. I think that's what it comes down to. I've seen docs do a few ridiculous things. I remember a doc walked into a kid's room once, and the kid was screaming. He was a Taiwanese kid, and he was in a mist tent. So the tent has a vaporizer in it, so the air is very moist to keep the lungs more able to expel mucus. The kid was sick. So when you went in there, you had to wear a mask and gloves and a gown because he was real sick. And the kid's screaming because he was isolated and afraid. And nobody could talk to him because he didn't speak English. And his parents weren't around all day. So he went off the deep end. This doctor comes in and he starts pointing at him and screaming at him. And I took the guy by the shoulder. I'm like, he doesn't understand. And he's just, he's getting more wigged out. This young doctor probably had 180 IQ, brilliant, got A's in everything. I kept trying to say to him, he's terrified. He doesn't know what's going on. He feels helpless. And he wouldn't stop. So I grabbed him and I physically pushed him out of the room. I told him, don't come back. You know? And then I looked at the kid and I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do to help this kid, right? The first thing I did was I breathed. I said, and he looks at me like, what the hell are you doing? I did it again. And I'm pointing my finger up like, pay attention, right? I'm like, and then I said, you're okay. You're just one word, you're okay. It's okay. You know, and this is like calming down. And he stopped flipping out. So somewhere in all that brilliant doctor's training, that was left out.
Yeah.
Or he called in sick that day, you know? And he was at a family gathering telling everybody about how his Hume was 99.999.
Yeah.
But he didn't have his heart work. So that day I was able to help that kid. Does that mean I helped everybody? Hell no. It doesn't mean that. But I think that covers it. In terms of a cop, pay attention, be strong, but don't be a bully. And you're not an occupying force, right? Cops are not an occupying force. Sometimes they're forced to become one
Yeah.
when there's a horrendous situation.
Correct.
But if somebody stops you because you got a broken taillight and they treat you that way, they don't belong in that field.
Right.
And the other thing about a cop is a civilian.
Yeah.
There are only civilians and soldiers and foreigners. So you're one of those three things. Now, a cop has investigatory and arrest permission powers, right? But they're under certain circumstances and with certain ethical guidelines.
Yeah.
So I would say that, you know, a good cop like Tom, next door guy, fantastic. And he told me some stories about some people that tried to provoke him and he wouldn't let them. You know, he was too smart to get trapped.
Yeah.
So I guess that's pretty much, you know, a salesman, do you sell people things they don't need and
Right.
can't use?
Right.
Why?
Right.
You know, well, it's good for the bottom line, but is it good for them? Am I going to sell you a pair of size 4 shoes? Well, they're beautiful. They're new.
Right.
Yeah? No. So I guess that covers it, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that.
I think it's pretty simplified in that. It's all, to me, I even talk about this, it's not the exact parallel, but intention. You know, so
Yeah.
when I think about somebody making a mistake or screwing up, which we all do, if it was an accident,
Right.
very forgiving. If it was intentional, I don't give you much grace.
Yeah.
Applying that to your field, your job, what is your intention? Motivation, I talked about that earlier. What is your reason for being where you're at? If they're pure, if they're real, if you're present, I think is the word,
Yeah.
you're in the right spot. Doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, like you said. Doesn't mean you're going to not mess up.
Right.
But what is your motivation? What is your intent or intention? And that's kind of how you find your place. And if you don't have proper intentions, don't have a pure heart with that career, move on. You're doing yourself and others a disservice.
Right. So I would say like attorneys general, prosecutors, what would add to that list? And what I would say is that caring, it has to be specific. It's like, okay, we can't do, here's a list of what we can't do. I say, okay, what can you do?
Right.
You know, we have to go from the can't list to, well, then how do we think more creatively for solutions? Are you going to stay focused on your problems and be paralyzed and be of no use to anybody but yourself? Oh, I got another paycheck, honey. Isn't that cool? Yeah, put it in the box. Ka-ching. Didn't help anybody, but I didn't get caught breaking any rules. Cool. Wow, we're one step closer to the second boat. Yeah, screw them. So here's the thing. With any of these people, if they typically refer to those people they're supposed to serve as they,
Yeah.
those people have a fundamental problem. And I think that really ties it up.
Yeah.
When you're and not like if a cop stops you and you look at him and you say, you know what, you're an asshole and a pig. Now you're you deserve it, or I do.
Right.
You're offending that person as a human being and a professional and somebody who's out at risk.
Right.
And they don't know how much you're going to accelerate, and escalate.
Right.
So you've provoked them. But if they just think of you or I as wrong. For minister, cop, nurse, doc, counselor, any of them, then that person doesn't belong.
Yeah.
I guess that's about enough of that subject.
Okay. Reclaiming Timeless Ways with Mike Traster, myself, Simon Fuller. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, have a great day.